Welcome back. Rachel Reeves, big story of the week, really. I mean, she clearly, for better or for worse, deliberately or accidentally or something, she has lied about her career. She was not, as she claimed, an economist at the Halifax Bank of Scotland. In fact, she worked in the retail banking department, which is basically complaints. She didn't, as she claimed, work as an economist at the Bank of England for 10 years. It was 6 years. Now, if you achieve the position of Chancellor of the Exchequer, the very important position of Chancellor of the Exchequer, on the back of these claims about your qualifications, the question is this a breach of the ministerial code or not? We're trying to get to the bottom of that. A lot of people are saying it is. That could be a resigning issue or a dismissal issue. Let's introduce my guest, and then we'll play a little bit of fun footage of what happened in the Commons today. But first of all, a warm welcome to Deputy Editor at Conservative Home, Henry Hill. Welcome, Henry.
Good evening.
Henry, before we talk, Henry, this was quite a funny thing happened today. This was Lee Anderson from the Reform UK Party addressing this issue in his time-honoured fashion. So take it away, Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a few weeks ago from that dispatch box, the Minister for Rural Affairs said that he'd been congratulated by a farmer over the introduction of the inheritance tax. Now, I think this farmer must have been a cannabis farmer, because just yesterday we had 10,000 farmers on Whitehall protesting against this madcap decision. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that this decision should be thrown in the trash can along with Rachel from Accounts' CV?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about CVs. It's good to see the honourable member doing well.
Well, there you go, Henry. Rachel from Accounts and her CV. And it's very funny, some of this stuff. I mean, apart from her actual career, she's made claims about being a junior chess champion. She took part in the British Championship, Junior Championships, 3 years in a row. The best position I think she achieved was about 22nd, was 29th at her last attempt. So she was never a junior chess champion. That doesn't matter so much. But, you know the details. You know what she's claimed. You're in politics. In your view, I'm going to say in your expert view, is this a breach of the ministerial code?
I think the funny thing about the ministerial code is that it is almost impossible to have that on something like this. Effectively, what the ministerial code is, it's got a very strange position in our constitution. It started out as a very boring document called Questions of Procedure for Ministers, and then over time, as these things do, it has sort of mutated into what is considered to be sort of the golden rule of like what ministers should do. But the issue with it is that it has no formal status, really. It's entirely up to the Prime Minister whether an investigation is launched, and if there is an investigation, what the consequences should be. Now, there are some things which we can say are absolutely clearly a breach of the ministerial code, but that's because they've been established by precedent, such as lying to the House of Commons. On the other hand, lying about your CV in the past before you were appointed to a ministerial role, is that a breach of the ministerial code? The only way to find out for certain would be for Sir Keir Starmer to ask the independent advisor to conduct an investigation, and it doesn't seem likely that he's going to.
I get that point, but it's certainly turning into a major embarrassment. I mean, as I say, on the surface, it's sort of trivial, it's amusing. A lot of people embellish their qualifications, embellish their career statistics for personal advantage. But if you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, perhaps it's a little more important than that. But if you put in a call to number 10 at the moment and you say, Rachel Reeves, has she breached the ministerial code? The answer you get is the Prime Minister is very happy with the work the Chancellor of the Exchequer is doing for the economy. Now, that indicates to me that number 10 Downing Street is, at the very least, rather uncomfortable about this. It's not a happy time for the government over this issue, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, the problem that the government and Rachel Reeves in particular has is they went so hard on the ministerial code over Boris Johnson, right? There's a tweet from Rachel Reeves. There is I believe, a House of Commons clip of Rachel Reeves saying that, the ministerial code, we must hold ourselves to the highest possible standards. There can be no whiff of impropriety, and so on and so on. And obviously, every time a politician does that, journalists like me, we just make a little note, we squirrel that away for the 50% chance that it's going to come back and bite them, as it has in this case, because Labour made such a thing about standards that it is absolutely remarkable. And it's not just Rachel Reeves. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy, he told the House of Commons the other week, I have kept the Chagossians informed about the deal in the Indian Ocean every step of the way. The same day the Chagossians came out and said he hasn't spoken to us about this once. So this is clearly not a single problem. And with Reeves, one of the things that hasn't really been mentioned in this context with Reeves' CV is, do you remember when she did that book on women in politics?
Oh yeah, the plagiarisation city book. Yeah,
there was plagiarism in it. So this is clearly not a new problem, but ultimately, and it has to be said rightly, I've written about the ministerial code before, it is correct that it is up to the Prime Minister who serves in his cabinet, right? And the Prime Minister should be held politically accountable for that. We would not want officials sacking somebody from say being the Chancellor. That would be undemocratic. But as far as the ministerial code goes, it does mean that there's no way really for the Conservatives or anyone else to force this issue. There's no independent means of having an investigation, but it does make life very difficult for the Chancellor, because every time she has to be dealing with stories like this, that's another bit of the news cycle in which Labour can't be putting up its own arguments, right? And it's already in trouble on the economy. There's been the backlash over the NIC hike, which is going to lead to lower wages. There's the huge backlash over the changes to farming. There's been an absolute avalanche of bad news. Growth was headline growth was flat in the most recent quarter. So they already have the economy is an incredibly difficult brief for them. And what you want, if you're the government, is you want people to at least have confidence, especially of a new government who was only elected in the summer. You want people to have confidence in your Chancellor, right? You think Tony Blair and Gordon Brown in that honeymoon period of New Labour. You want the Chancellor to be able to go out and say, look, that I'm straight with you. I'm on your side. This is my position. If the credibility of the Chancellor is undermined, as this story is undermining Rachel Reeves, that means that when she goes out to try and front up to these incredibly difficult economic issues for the government, she's not going to have credibility as a message carrier. And that is really serious for Keir Starmer, given that he has another 4 years of this to try and get through.
Well, listen, Henry, I'm really glad you came on, because you have cleared up the situation, exactly what will happen, which I suspect won't be much. But if, as Lee Anderson indicates, she wasn't much more than Rachel from accounts, it might explain her budget, and it might explain the enormous cock-ups with the winter fuel allowance and now the farmers' inheritance tax. A lot of people are worried about her competence and, of course, her dubious background. Listen, Henry, thank you for that. Excellent to talk to you. Thank you very much. Henry Hill there, Deputy Editor at Conservative Home.